Poddar International, St. Michael's is here in this world, Vidya Niketan Academy, Shriram and Army Public School.
Quite a varied lot. I wish a very good evening to all of you. Very happy to have so many educators, on this particular forum. Today we are going to talk about project-based learning, as all of you know, and its implementation in schools. So to implement this kind of method, we need to have a very good understanding of the method. Okay, as you see on the screen, most of us have gone through an education system which was very different from today's education system, and we had experiential learning in our kind of way, but not in the kind of way which is being projected these days, because now more and more research has gone into education, and what they have found is that basically what we experience is what we know. So these are two very important quotes that will be very relevant to us during this discussion. One is, you don't learn to walk by following rules, you learn by doing and by falling over, which is, I think, universal truth. Nobody tells you, okay, lift one foot and put it in front of the other and then you will walk. It is something that you experience. And when you get hurt, when you fall, you realize what not to do. So this is how learning takes place in life. And taking a cue from that, we have applied it to the education system also. Now, further to that, you don't only just learn by experience. Like, you keep falling over, but you don't reflect that what were the reasons for which you fell. There is no learning taking place in any case, because you will keep falling over. So the second most important thing is that we must reflect on the experience. We must learn from our experiences. And that is why terms like holistic learning have come into play. We also in schools, like we have these subject periods, it's a maths period, it's an English period, it's a social science period. So we are now getting over these kind of segregations and compartments and coming to holistic learning. Now, holistic learning is when it takes place in more ways than one, which I think since all of us are educators, we don't have to go to the basics. Most of us know that every learning that takes place is not compartmentalized, and everything is connected to another. And that is why our whole curriculums speak to a whole human being and not compartmentalized into subjects. So gradually the thinking that is coming in is that instead of having subject, we have concepts. And from the concepts should arise the subjects which we address. So a project-based learning will be using the abbreviation of PBL throughout, because it's a long word. So this PBL is actually a teaching method in which students gain knowledge and skills by investigating a problem and responding or engaging to a problem. So I think what we have got from this particular definition is that there's got to be a problem. Identification of a problem is a must. And this is also experiential learning, as the term says, experiential learning. Very important quote. All of us would have heard it sometime or the other. Tell me, I will forget. Show me, I may remember. But involve me and I will understand. It's a simple quote that I think we must have come across sometime or the other. Now, why is experiential learning important? Experiential learning, as a definition, I will not go into it because the word says it all. What you experience and you learn from your experience. Now, it's important because today, rote learning has become absolutely irrelevant. Why? After all, our forefathers, our parents, all of us went through the system where we did rote learning, and we are pretty successful people. So why is it suddenly that rote learning is becoming irrelevant? Because of technology that has come in. You know what rote learning can do, technology is doing for you. So today you don't need to learn all the mathematical tables, formulas. You don't need to learn probably definitions. In science also, you don't need to learn anything, because everything is available at the click of a button. So now in the future generations, what are they going to do? They don't need all these skills, because any time that they require anything, they just have to ask Google. I mean, why would they strain their brains to do, to learn? But what will they do? Have human beings become redundant? No, because all these machines, all this technology, they need humans to feed in data into them. So this is what we are preparing a next generation for, that they have to be relevant in the future scenario by learning to feed in what is going into the machines, not what the machines can do. So they have to learn the skills that technology cannot do. So that is why experiential learning and all these terms of critical thinking, logical reasoning, all these things are coming into vogue, because our whole scenario has changed with so much technology coming in. So we have to learn to do what technology cannot do. And also to learning, the biggest motivators of any learning are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Now, autonomy is any child. If you see the youngest child, is very happy wanting to do something. So, if you notice, a 2-year-old child is, when you give something, he wants to do it himself, and he feels so thrilled. Apne aap kara. So this feeling of conquering a challenge is very strong in human beings. All of us also, we feel very proud when we do something on our own. A lot of people feel that I've seen a lot of teachers coming in where they leave jobs where they have to obey orders, do something mindlessly. They would probably settle in for a lower salary in a school, which gives them the choice of doing what they believe in doing. So autonomy is something where all, I think, human beings feel very thrilled about. Then mastery, again, you want to be master, you want to, excel at everything. So that's again a human skill. And purpose. Most of us, when we teach things to children and in our classrooms, a lot of teachers have this script that, students don't pay attention. Why aren't students paying attention? There's something wrong with our way of teaching if students do not pay attention. So, ask yourself, because they don't find a purpose of learning. Now, when you're teaching them, say, tables also, 2 1s are 2, 2 2s are 4, the child says, why do I have to learn this? Where is he going to use it? So he must have a sense of purpose. And that is why experiential learning, is a must. Now, what are some of the methods used in experiential learning? Please use the chat box and please answer. What are some of the methods which are used in experiential learning? So methods of learning, since you're all teachers, please use the chat box. And Radhika, please keep reading out the responses.
Right. Right. We have Vaishali ma'am telling us learning by doing. We have Mrs. Agarwal telling us it's about excursions. We have Rosina Sheikh ma'am telling us about projects. Waiting for the rest to respond.
What are the kind of methods you'd use, if you want to adopt experiential learning?
Sarika ma'am says playway method.
Okay.
And then there is another, yes, Shashi ma'am is also saying playway method and field experiences, activities and projects.
Okay.
Blended learning is also being suggested by Upasana.
Right. So some of them you said, some of them you've not. Now we'll go to the methods used in experiential learning. One is experiments. Experiential learning experiments has to be, so it's one of the methods that we all have to use. So that is why we have all these labs to use. Now we have math lab also. Now we have English lab also. We have science labs, of course. Then field trips, where we experience, where we undergo that experience of real life situations. Storytelling is also experiential learning, because when you tell a story, the child goes into the world of your story and he experiences the same emotions, the same environment that you are narrating to him. Role play, again an experience. It's where the child, I'll send you the PPTs, PPT will be sent on the group. So please don't write, just listen and respond. So don't, concentrate on writing. So role plays, when you give role plays, that's one of the best ways of experiential learning, because you get into the skin of that character and you experience whatever the character is experiencing. Surveys are also experiential, because when you go and talk to people and you collect data, you are experiencing what they are experiencing. Narratives, simulation is you have these days you have simulations on the internet also. So online you have a lot of apps which give you simulation. Then a lot of games which people have mentioned, playway method. Internships when you actually go and work in the environment. So that is experiential learning. Model building, you experience whatever you want to on a bigger scale, you put it on a smaller scale, and then you experience the same environment. Now, project-based learning is the biggest method of experiential learning. So basically, the difference between experiential learning and project-based learning is that project-based learning is a method of experiential learning. If you use it interchangeably also, there's no harm. But basically, that slight difference is that project-based learning is a method. Experiential learning is the way we do it. Okay. So what is the difference between experiential learning and project-based learning? Experiential learning is a whole big gamut, and project-based learning is one of the methods of experiential learning. Now, what is project-based learning? Now, in project-based learning, what a person does is, you give a problem. For the problem, you interact with each other. You find solutions. You probably experience something. So you do some other experiential learning methods. And finally, you present. So whatever you've come up with, you present it to an audience. So all this process is project-based learning. Now, project-based learning is a teaching approach or a method where, what are the important words now? That the students engage in collaborative, real world problems. Now, very important is collaborative. It is not something that you're doing just on your own and you are coming up with solutions. Where you get together, you brainstorm, you work together. So this collaboration between the students and the teacher is a must. Amongst the peer group is a must. So these are the ways in which project-based learning is done. And real-world problem solving, and again, very important words. They are not just academic problems, not only on paper. It must be relevant to a child's life or an adult life, to our world. So the problem must be, such that it is relevant to us. Now, projects are organized around a driving question. Again, a very important aspect of project-based learning is a driving question. Now, you will come across this word driving question again and again. And this is the basic crux. The first thing that you form is a driving question. And thus, these help you answer the other questions. So we'll come across this word again and again. That is why I've introduced it here. Now, how do you, go with this whole method? The PBL methodology first is that the teacher is not somebody who's in front of the class and preaching or lecturing or telling. The teacher is a guide on the side. She is with the students rather than in front of the class. So there is more coaching and modeling and less telling what to do. So the driving question also has to come with collaborative effort of the teacher and the student. All this is all collaboration between the teacher and the groups of students. So the accent is on finding out with the students and not being the expert and telling them. So more cross-disciplinary thinking. That means it's not about a subject. A science teacher will not go to a class and say, okay, today we'll learn science. It is about a concept which is holistic. and it has many different disciplines which are incorporated in the concept. So a science teacher must know the use this particular problem will be put to, which means maybe social science, because the use may be in society. The English teacher will have to know some science and some social science. So even teachers have to know all these multidimensional things to be effective in project-based learning. And it's more performance-based assessment. Now, when we come to assessment, assessment, if we continue with the traditional assessment methods, project-based learning will not work at all, because it has no relevance in the traditional assessment methods. The assessment methods are performance-based, how the child is going through the steps of discovery. And the result is not very important. But what is important is the methodology. It is not on what knowledge he has gained at the end of it. It is the way he has gone about it that is more important. Now, 7 essential elements of PBL. First is curiosity. What is most important in using this methodology is curiosity. The child has to be, the curiosity has to be, reflected in a child's behavior. So which means the moment you go to a class and say, okay, open lesson number 7 and today we are going to do this, the curiosity of the child is killed. The surprise element of a class has to remain. The child has to be curious about each step that he's going to take, not only what the teacher is going to teach, but the questions have to be such, open-ended questions that the child is curious about what is going to come next and what am I going to answer. The authenticity of the project. It cannot be copy paste from Google. So nothing can be project based if the child can get it from Google. So any project based learning has to be something in which originality of the child has to be there. A student's voice is very important, which we do not consider in traditional methods. In the traditional methods, what do? We say, okay, I told you so. Why should I do it? I told you so. Why is it important? Because you have to study it. So these kind of things cannot be done in this method of learning. A student's opinion, a student's voice is very, very important. Each little thing that he or she comes up with has to be brainstormed. It may not be great. It may not have relevance, but you cannot tell a student, okay, this is irrelevant. If a student has come up with an irrelevant idea, he must be able to explain why it is irrelevant, or you must be able to explain to him why it is irrelevant, which part of the idea can be relevant. So a student's voice is very important. Reflection. Reflection is when we discuss, we analyze a topic. When we consider the pros and cons of it. Now, even as a human being, even as society, we are becoming a society with a lot of intolerance. This comes from a basic education system, because there one person's voice is the final word. It can be the teacher, it can be any adult. So we grow up with the fact that everything has one dimension. Whatever I think is right. So this is what we have to, I think, unlearn. And reflection is very important. Various aspects of a problem or solution become very, very important. Criticism. This is one word we only take in the negative sense. When we say criticize, it is automatically in your head, you think that I don't like people criticizing me, which is everything negative. So criticism can be positive or negative. People expressing their opinions on a particular topic should always be welcome, whether it is negative or positive. We learn equally from negative criticism as we do from positive. Result. Now, result will come if you have all the other essential elements are there. Results are important, but they have a limited value. They don't have the kind of importance that results have in our present system of education. In our present system of education, What matters is the marks you get, as long as you are able to give the best results. It does not matter the methods you have used. And that is why we see a lot of students cheating. A lot of students, cut, copy, paste, because for them, the result is the ultimate. So the importance of result is much less, but yes, it has to be important, because after all this, if you do not get the desired results, all this becomes useless. And then a very, very important part of project-based learning is the presentation. In the world today and in the future world, communication is going to be of utmost importance. So unless children are good communicators, I might have all the talent, I might know everything, I might be a good researcher, but if I am not able to present it to you, there is no point. Even a workshop like this, I may be very knowledgeable about project-based learning, but unless I'm able to deliver it to you, is there any point my knowing? So that is why presenting is a very, very important aspect of project-based learning. And last of all, but not the least, application. Because project-based learning has to be relevant in the real life or real world of today. So what is the application of whatever you are teaching? If it doesn't have any application, then the knowledge Google will give you, then why do it? So it's as irrelevant as that. Now, when you go into this project-based learning, what are the different steps? First of all, identifying a problem is the biggest and first and the basic step. Unless you know what the problem is. Some people also say project-based learning is problem-based learning, which is also quite correct, because unless there's a problem, there is no learning taking place. There's nothing happening to find a solution. So identifying a problem is a must, and that problem should be relevant to our world. Then investigating using the inquiry method. Now, whether it is, any kind of data collection, whether it is in a lab, it's science, or it is English, any subject, the inquiry method is that when you go into the depth of a problem, you're curious to know why, and how. So when all the whys and hows are answered, that is where the results are in the steps of coming around. In the inquiry method, you explore. Now, when you explore something, you find a solution, but you challenge the solution. You do not take the solution at face value. You challenge the solution, whether it is correct or not. Could there be another aspect? Could there be another solution? Collaborating, very important, because in life, nothing is, there's no knowledge which is ever relevant, which is not a collaborative effort, or which is not useful to more than one people. So collaborating means there are many minds working. There is a lot of challenging taking place. There is a lot of brainstorming taking place, and that is where the best results come in. So analyzing and brainstorming are very, very important steps of PBL. Now, this is not only in discussion. This is on forming hypothesis, challenging hypothesis, either, finding that it's correct, and that is how the results come, or refuting the hypothesis, which is also equally important. That I made a hypothesis, after that it did not work out. Now then we see why it didn't work out. We go into the depth of the whole process. Now say I want to build an electric car. Now in the first I'll first identify a problem that, well, there is a lot of fuel consumption in other cars. It is not good for the environment. So I must have something for which there is a biodegradable fuel. Now what can I have? So I have options. Can a car run on solar energy? Can a car run on wind energy? Can a car run on electric energy? So then I brainstorm, I investigate. This is the investigating method, is a lot of research. So what other people have done, I mean, I'm not the first person to think about it. So I must go into the details of people who have done some work on this. So I investigate, I inquire. And then I see that people who have been involved in this process, they found that the solar panels are too huge. So we can't have a solar car because the car will become too bulky. Then they've tried to use wind, but again, if there is a day which does not have wind, the car does not run. So what to do? They have not been successful. So then I find, okay, electric, somebody did do some work and it seems doable. So let me work on an electric car. So then I explore more. Somebody tells me, well, no, electricity is equally expensive. And, electricity has to be generated. Suppose there's no electricity. India has a lot of problem about electricity. So this is all collaborative effort of finding out. I cannot find all these things. So maybe a group will be able to find things. We'll collaborate, we'll analyze, we'll brainstorm. Everybody has a say. Now, once this group has done all this, then we refine a solution. How can we make an electric car which is viable? And then we present the project to our class, to an audience, to whoever is relevant, maybe an expert. So as a group, we present that project. Now, a lot of people, think that project-based learning is doing projects. And this is what we do in schools. All schools have a lot of projects. And parents feel that ये school project बहुत कराता है. So they feel that, it's too much of a burden on them. Teachers go and find projects from libraries and they feel project देने से experiential learning हो गया. So now let me ask you, is it the same? Raise your hands. Those of you who think that project-based learning is the same as doing a project, please raise your hands. Okay. One. How many can you see, Radhika?
Ma'am, there's only one, Surekha, ma'am.
Okay. The rest don't think that project-based learning is the same as doing a project. Now, can all learning become project-based? All the learning that we do in our schools, can we just change our whole system to project-based learning? If you think that we can, eventually change our whole education system to project-based, raise your hand. Can you see some hands?
No, ma'am. I believe the participants, they should know there's a reaction button and you can give reactions. So I would request all participants to please actively participate and use that.
Okay. Now, okay, we got some reactions. So most of you think that all learning cannot become project-based. We have to, probably take some topics as project-based. Now, since all of you have some paper pencil in your hand, this I don't want you to show to me, but write 3 topics which can only be taught with traditional methods, since none of you think that all learning can be project-based. So write 3 topics which can only be taught by traditional methods, and there can be no projects on that. It cannot become a project-based learning. So that you can write as you go along. Now, my 4th question is, the kind of projects we do in schools, are they effective in the PBL method? Now we'll talk about project-based learning versus doing a project. Now, that you answered, you basically need to answer in your own mind. And as we go along, you see whether you are correct or not, whether you want to change your opinions or not. So projects in schools, what's the difference now between project-based learning and doing a project? Projects in schools, we only show it in the schools. But project-based learning will have an impact on the real world, on your life. So any project-based learning is a process that takes place. It has an effect on your whole life in your real world. Now, projects in schools are pre-planned and clear. The teacher says, okay, I'm giving you 5 projects, divide yourselves into 5 groups. One person will make probably a science project, one person will do an English project, one person will do a maths project. So you give them what you want them to do, and they do the project and they give you the results. Project-based learning is open-ended. Nobody gives them. Nobody says, they discover the problems and they say, okay, this is a problem. How can we deal with it? So it is open-ended. It is discussed amongst the class. I'm not saying that, people go in all different directions and they do whatever they please. But there has to be first a problem which affects your life. It is discussed amongst the class, and then they can work on it in many dimensions. They do not have to make an electric car. They can probably find different solutions to making something which is fuel efficient or which is environment friendly. Now, projects in schools are based on direction, and the criteria is very clear that, okay, you'll use these kind of materials, this is the time frame, this is what you'll do, and you will make something and bring it to class. And then we have these project fairs where we display all the projects. Whereas the project-based learning is a whole system where it's based on basically the purpose and how your mind is curious about it. So it is absolutely, it has a much larger canvas. Now, in the project, student is a student, the teacher is telling the student, okay, make this project. Whereas in the project-based learning, the student is the innovator. Student is not only listening to the teacher. Student is innovating and using his own ideas. And the assessment is by the real world, how useful it is in his life, not by the teacher. So can he use these things in his life? In projects, it's either model making or some assignment based, whereas project-based learning is opportunity based. You decide, whether it's relevant or not, and the relevance of a situation can come in any time. It could be a teacher teaching a lesson in class, and suddenly this question comes up where it becomes very relevant, and you make it into a project of a class. So it is a much, much wider canvas. Projects can be done at home without a teacher, whereas the project-based learning needs continuous guide because it's a long process. So it needs continuous guidance of a teacher, needs brainstorming, needs the class and his home all together, whereas his mind is working on a concept throughout. It is not subject related. Now, in projects, the teacher's work is to assess. Now, in the project-based learning, actually the teacher's work is right in the beginning, to decide the problem, to brainstorm with the child and decide a problem. The assessment is on the way it is relevant to his life. The assessment is by itself. And the assessment is continuous on how much work the student has put in during this whole, how much dedication is shown, how much perseverance is shown, how much curiosity is shown. So this is a continuous assessment that is taking place. In the project, you know the outcome. Okay, if you told the child to make an electric car, only an electric car will come out, nothing else. Whereas in the project-based learning, it may be a surprise because they're brainstorming so much, the child may come up with a very novel idea of a solar-powered car, of anything else. Because during his process, he finds that there are better things that he can do. So innovation is the main thing that is relevant. And projects are based on previous work, whereas project-based learning is about the driving question. The driving question, we will deal with it in subsequent slides. So a project is basically a tool. It's not that a project you can't use, but they are just a tool for project-based learning. The project-based learning is the whole vehicle of teaching knowledge and skills which are going to be relevant in the child's life. Now, since I told you project-based learning, it just focuses on the problem. So how do we choose the problem? How do we choose a topic? two basic questions that a child has to ask is, what do I want to learn? Because his needs, his interests are paramount. If he's not interested in something, he will not learn. So what do I want to learn? And second, the most important question, why do I need to learn? Now, when the child finds out why do I need to learn, he'll get more interested in the project. Now, why is it important? Why do I need to learn? Now, in mathematics, say we teach the children plus and minus. How do we teach? Right in the beginning, we tell the child, okay, make two lines and add two together. So, this is addition. Now, basic question is, why do we need to learn? In the project-based learning method, there is no such teaching like this, where 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 or 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. It is a project given, okay, you have to go and buy, say, certain number of items, and you come back home and, something which is reality everyday based. His mother's buying vegetables, his father's getting, him some toys or whatever. So in the present system of learning, what do? We say 2 plus 2, we first teach the addition, then give them problem sums. And we feel that, because he knows additions, he will know what to do with the problem sums. And then to further, negate this whole learning, what we teach the children is, when in the problem sum, when there is word used in all, that means आपको plus करना है. And whenever there's a word used left, तब आपको minus करना है. So the child is looking for that word and is not using his mind. Actually, उसको करना क्या है? So this is, we are not only not making him do project-based learning, we are driving him away from it and getting him towards rote learning. If this is this, you will do this. Why? He does not know. Now, how to choose a topic? First, identify the areas of interest. Create a need to know list. What does the child need to know in his present age related atmosphere? Now, once you make a list of that, which are the things, forget about subjects, whether it's math, science, English, or whatever. So create these kind of areas of interest and then study its usefulness and impact on his life, and then choose interdisciplinary projects where the child forgets what he's doing. The child doesn't, because life is not like, if today I face a problem, I'm not going to think, is it science or is it maths that I need for this? So, like I go out and I see there's a lot of garbage on the roads and I want to do something about it. Am I going to think that, does it come in science, does it come in social science, or does it come in maths? I'm not going to think of it. So my problem is a real life problem where all the knowledge that I have comes into play. So if you choose interdisciplinary project, the child will have an idea that life is holistic. Life is not into compartments. Now we come to the main interesting thing, is the driving question. The driving question is a question you pose to students to investigate a problem or process. Now in this, there is no topic, there is a question. And this question cannot be a yes or no question. Now, if I see that the garbage is lying on the road and I want to do something, and if my question is, should the garbage be removed? Yes, no, there is no investigation. So how and what and why are the three words you use in a driving question. So for example, what do ratio and chemistry have to do with cooking? Now ratio is maths and chemistry is science and cooking is an art. So when you combine these three things, the child is bound to look into these three aspects and find the relationship. Then how healthy is our relationship with nature? Now this is environmental learning. Now when he goes, it's a driving question. When he goes to find out, he will come across many areas which he will explore. Our relationship with nature, he will have environmental science. He will have science to a big extent. He will have English because there'll be many poetry and prose lessons which will be attached to it. So all these things, he will treat them as one. And probably he can, when he's exploring this thing, he will think of the poem he read about nature, about environment. He will think of various areas which have different kinds of climate, which have different kinds of, the way the people deal with things, so social science. He will, of course, deal with science. So all this combined together will form a project. How is geodiversity important to our local area? Again, local area, geographic, historical, geodiversity, science, and in between you will get maths. So all these together will form the project. So the driving question has to be a very well thought out process. And as teachers, I think it's a greatest responsibility that we are aware enough to form good driving questions for project-based learning. And any driving question has to be open-ended. It cannot be yes or no, so the child cannot get away with yes or no. It has to have multiple characters. There should be many opinions to it. There should be many aspects to it. And different viewpoints to it, so that it involves a lot of brainstorming and investigation. And it should require some kind of analysis, data analysis or investigation. Some of the other good driving questions: how can a school become a carbon neutral facility? Now, when we are teaching about environment, this comes in environmental science also, this comes in chemistry also, this is an English lesson or Hindi lesson, whatever language you're learning also. So, all that combined. How can data help us make informed decisions about our health? So these questions encompass many, many subjects, many aspects, and this is how projects are done. A few more driving, because it's a very, very important aspect of project-based learning. So these are some of it. You will get a lot of driving questions in your PPT, which I put at the end of it. We don't have time to take on many. So you'll get a variety of driving questions for your project-based learning. So design a car that will be environmental friendly. Again, we are not giving a project that you design a electricity car or motorized car or anything. He will think of what is environmental friendly. Plan an edu-fair and make it profitable. So again, finance involved in it, maths involved in it, the planning of edu-fair is science involved in it. Of course, English languages are common to all. And why do cells go to mitosis in human body? So when he's exploring this thing, he comes across many things which are chemical related, biology related, botany, zoology, everything comes into it. The driving question should not be a direct question. It should be a little abstract where the child has to use his mind. It is not that it's a direct question answer given. So that is why that's why I said project-based learning, the teacher is very relevant at the beginning of the learning, because this is where the teacher gives guidance to the driving question. And the teacher does not give the driving question. The teacher only discusses the driving question. The driving question comes from the discussion between the teacher and the students, and end of it. You see, a teacher's role is very important, because in your mind, you have a very set, you know what you're aiming at. So you don't get distracted. What you're doing is doing all this brainstorming and leading the children to what you want them to do. And that, in that whole process, you might come across with some brilliant ideas from the student. So as a teacher, you have to be flexible enough. As a teacher, I may not have thought of a great idea, but when it comes from a student, I must be willing to accept it, willing to quickly incorporate it in my mental image of my driving question, and then make a new driving question for them. So any such question must give the children a sense of challenge and purpose. Purpose is relevance to the real world, but challenge comes when they brainstorm. When children are discussing with you and they discuss this question, they get enthused that, our ideas are being heard and I can do this, I can do that. So this is very, very important. And it should be complex enough to require more than a Google search. So do not get your driving questions from Google, because that is where your students will also go, and total respect lost, because Once they find that the teacher is actually giving them from Google, they will never be interested in your class, because they will know that, oh, that I can find out. They may not, but they know they'll find out. So that is why it's very important for you to remain abreast of your students at all times. Now, what are the tools you can use to create curiosity? Videos, of course. Like, these are all the previewing things. Before you discuss anything, you give them, some material to go and explore. So it could be a video. It could be a guest speaker who's, very interesting and very knowledgeable in a particular field. So children get motivated to sort of look up to him or her, or it can be just a lively discussion. So all these things create the curiosity and make it interesting for them to listen to you. Then comes the second step, is now making a plan. Now you've got your driving question. Now, how do you make a plan? Now, when you make groups, you have to appoint one project leader, because otherwise the group will never work. So this teamwork, again, educators have to be very, very knowledgeable about teamwork. Very, very important. So you know your class. So either by some kind of voting process, or by your selection, identify one project leader. Then role of the project leaders and members should be clearly defined. Give them different aspects of it, so that all of them are not working in one direction. Assign specific activities to them. Okay, you will do, the child, some child is very good at, say, technology. Some child is very good at collecting data. Some child is very good at presentation, so that everybody feels equally important. Normally, what happens is a person who presents comes in the fore, and other people feel demotivated. So once they're given clear roles and they're appreciated for their roles, all of them will take it as a challenge and do it well. And then all the tools that you're going to use, explain to them or discuss with them, so that they're very clear about the variety of tools they can use. And very important is plan for exigencies. No matter what you do, a plan B should always be there in life. Whether it is, no matter how sure you are. Because if it fails, it should not demotivate a group so much that they leave it. So a plan B must always be there with you. When they come to you with a failed plan, you must be able to suggest a proper plan to them. Now, very important to have the voice and choice of students in this whole thing, because, unless the students take on responsibility, they will not be interested in the project. It is their responsibility, it is their baby. And also be accountable for the lapses. So consequences, they must know that if they don't perform, or if they don't keep up with what the assignment they've been given, what is it that they will face? So that is up to you as a teacher to choose. And everybody learns in a different way. So let them choose their own learning path. Some children can write well. Some children we find in classes, they don't write well and they can't write. And a lot of teachers, say that I know that he knows, but he doesn't write. That's a common problem in classes. And now what I tell them is they don't need to really write, because by the time they become adults, writing will be just out of vogue, because all of us are actually speaking and Google is typing. So eventually, that's not a skill that will be there, 10 years hence. Now the skills that we use, who thought that we'd be using all this? So writing is really going out of fashion. So it's okay if they don't write, but let them use their own ways of doing things. The rigidity is something that kills project-based learning. It has to be very, very flexible. The medium of presentation, whether it is by drama, whether it is by role play, or by making models, or by presentations, or by making videos. So let them choose how they're going to present it to the class. So the skills which you're looking for is flexibility, adaptability. That's why they say be like water. Be flexible, be adaptable, be ready to change course wherever you feel that it's not going ahead. So you cannot have a set ideas in your mind. And failure has to be celebrated. And this is what we normally do. We ridicule failure, because from failure comes, greater ideas of success. So children should be allowed to fail. Perseverance, dedication should be honored. Now, if you know that a child is failing, 3 times over and still he's carrying on, that is to be honored and appreciated so that this quality is not killed in a child. Innovation, anytime the child thinks of an out-of-box idea, just remember never to ridicule or kill it, because once done, he'll never come up with any great idea again. So appreciate any small, thinking or idea which is out of the box. Sometimes, children come up with ridiculous ideas and we shoo them off with, how stupid, he just comes up. There are a few children, we find them very irritating and he comes up with, these kind of ideas. But, these are the children who have the potential of becoming innovators tomorrow. They're not going to irritate you. Something's come in their mind. That is why probably it's not accepted the way you are thinking. But these children have great potential and a lot of teamwork spirit is required. Any child who cannot adjust to a team is unlikely to adjust to life. So this is a skill he needs for life. So these are the basic skills required for any project-based thinking. So what you're going to assess is based on the skills. You're not assessing the results. You're not assessing ki kisne kitna sundar project bana diya. You are assessing whether they managed the time well, could they finish in time, whether they were organized, their roles were defined, and the project leader could manage to keep his team. The team members were they together, were they collaborating well, and were they able to find the information they were required to find, which means that they had the focus. They knew what they were going to find. So these are the things that you need to assess in project-based learning. So some of this is just a recap. Some of the skills that they require are collaboration, creativity, communication, critical thinking, inquiry, innovation. Tools they can use is a lot of technology, books, of course, articles, videos, and anything from the environment. Now, we come to you now. Role of the teacher. Your role is never to give, never to say, do this. Always guide and get it from them. Keep asking leading questions till you get the desired results. Never, tell them that this is what was required. Then fix a time frame, because you don't have all the time in the world. So obviously a time frame has to be fixed. Your job is to have a planned structure, but with flexibility. If it goes wrong, you must know what to do. And monitoring, but not answering. Again, same thing, that you don't have to give answers at all. And be at hand to answer anything, which means in this, the teacher has to be know all, be all. You have to read a lot. You have to be very knowledgeable. You have to explore a lot. So that is why so much of training and so much of, teacher empowerment is going on, because a teacher has to be all in one. Now, this I'm not going through in detail, because I would like to go to the activity that you are supposed to do. But you all know that what are the mediums of expression where you put up your learning, the way you're going to be assessed. It can be any flow charts, diagrams, brochures, blogs, mind maps, flyers. A lot of it you are using in your classes also. Discussion forums are very, very important. So discussion forums as one thing that we don't use in class, because we feel that class ka discipline kharab ho jata hai. But any class which is noisy in a positive way is a class that is most alive. The best results come out of these classes. When in our traditional methods of learning, be quiet, keep quiet. So this kind of thinking has to go. Children must be allowed to express and probably taken to areas where they don't disturb others, but discussion forums are very, very important. Now, outcome and assessment, the most worrying thing about project-based learning is teachers feel, how are we going to assess them? I mean, marks kaise aayenge? So probably, the board also across the country, they have to change assessment methods. And that's what we talk about. I mean, you have to trust the teachers, because teacher is in regular touch with the student. You cannot have these pen and paper tests and expect your education system to become project-based. If it is project based, it has to be with the teacher. Somebody's on unmute. Okay. So it has to be, outcome or assessment has to be such that it is not only reviewed by the teacher, it is peer review. Now, peer review has a lot of advantages because the children, when they're working together, one, if they're asked to review, they are much more conscious about learning because they want to review other people's work. So that is very important. And then it should be a multiple review, not only just one teacher, because it is multidimensional. It is, many subjects are involved in it. So it has to be a review which has to be done by many people. It could be 2-3 teachers. Applicability of the project is very important because project-based learning has to be real life oriented. And, making a hypothesis and proving it is the ultimate test of project-based learning. And presentation is, I think, the best assessment tool that you can use. It can be to larger audiences or to the classes and public, online, whatever different ways. But this is where the communication skills and presentation of the student comes in. So this area has to be addressed a lot. Project-based learning is a topic actually you need at least say 8-9 hours to discuss. So that is why I'm going a little fast. The PPT will be sent to you, so you can go, and the recording will be sent to you, so you can go through it for a detailed work. Now, benefits of PBL are tremendous. I mean, if we actually use this as a standard method in all our schools, the kind of innovators we'll have and the kind of wastage of education that we have, I think that can be restricted. A lot of our time, energy, education is wasted because we don't use it. If you're not going to use it, you might as well not study it. So that is, very important. It develops a lot of teamwork, which is a life skill. In life, you have to work in teams. People who cannot work in teams are never successful. Research skills, when the curiosity, your need to know more, your hunger or your thirst for knowledge should never be satisfied. Logical thinking, a lot of educated people do not have basic common sense or logical thinking. Basic things they cannot think of. So that ability is developed with project-based learning in schools, whether it's logical thinking, reasoning, or critical thinking. All these are interrelated. And in this method of learning, a person becomes wholesome. Also, students become initiators and evaluators both. So they become accountable. Today, our students are not accountable. And that is what is, basically wrong with this whole education system, because everybody is studying for marks for somebody else. The students are not accountable for their own action. They don't feel that it's relevant to us. So once it's relevant to them, they become the evaluators of their own work. And they have a motivation to learn. They have the thirst for knowledge, and they have a multi-led learning. Now, anything cannot be all good. It has to have some challenges, some cons to it. So PBL is a little difficult to do in classrooms the way our classrooms are, the kind of population our schools have. If in a class you have say 70 students, it's not physically possible to carry on with this method. Secondly, we are not segregating students. So there are those very bright students who finish early, then they get bored. So you must have enough challenges for them to proceed ahead. Now, teachers, this is the biggest challenge in PBL. We've all been so conditioned to our traditional way of learning that it's very difficult to change our mindset. I'm sure all of you sitting here also, some of you are thinking, ye koi aise hota thodi hai. This is not practical. But, this is basically our mindset that it is possible, it does happen, and it can happen. And, it's a gradual process, not overnight. But, changing the mindsets of teacher is a big challenge. It is time consuming if you look at it from the point of view, the way I'm, saying all subjects done. But once you get used to this whole system, it's not time consuming because your whole syllabi is directed towards this. There are no books of, Hindi, English, Math, Social Studies, and Science. There are books of concepts. And this is gradually coming in. If you see in the market, you'll find many books which are just concept-driven books. And they taken the relevant subject. So it is coming in, and gradually when it comes in, it won't be a waste of time either. And some people feel that because it's so much chaos in the classroom, you don't build up bonds. But I strongly disagree. I think you build up greater, stronger bonds with the children because you're with them. You're not preaching to them. They don't look at you as somebody who comes and lectures and goes away. And maybe it is for differently able children. I'm not too sure. I don't work in that field. So maybe in the beginning, it is going to be a challenge for them. I don't know how we're going to adapt to them. So not so badly off a time, we are pretty good. So what we'll do is that you'll have breakout rooms. Radhika has assigned some breakout rooms to you according to your subject. You will go to the breakout rooms, which are into English, science, maths, social science, EVS, and others. Those who don't fit into anything will be others like GK or whatever. And this, you please with your mobile take a picture, because you will need this to retain what in your breakout rooms you won't have this. So take a picture. In your group, you have to decide one topic, which is the driving question. Then define it, put it in the form of, the topic has to be put in form of a driving question. Then just tell me what is the relevance to life, relevance to other, how many other subjects can you incorporate in that topic, and what are the skills and tools you're going to use, and what is the medium of presentation, how will you present it, whether it's going to be a role play, whether it's going to be a video presentation, model, or whatever. So the time given to you is 10 minutes, and one leader from your group will present it for 2 minutes. So most of them have gone into their breakout rooms. So you'll put the timer for 10 minutes and then they can come back. Yeah, who is the leader of the English group?
We haven't made yet, but I think Nandita ma'am can take the lead.
Okay.
Could I please pass it on to Kavita ma'am, because she was the one who initiated the entire thing. I just gave her the inputs.
Okay.
Everybody was so quiet. I thought I'd just give it a little bit of a head start. But I think Kavita, since everybody's videos were on till the last minute, I don't really know who I was talking to. But I think Kavita can take it. And Shweta Nagpal was writing it down. So I think those are the two teachers who could present it.
Okay, then Kavita and Shweta, can you unmute yourselves, and whoever wants to present it?
So here
Yes,
I
Shweta.
start. Yeah, so here I start with the driving question. The driving question is, why is Kathmandu in Nepal a hotspot for the travelers?
Okay.
Also, one more defining a driving question could be, what does a traveler look at when he or she travels?
Okay.
The second point, that is relevance to life, is all about birth and death. We all look upon birth and death, and I believe Kathmandu is a place where they have so many temples, and all of that is attached to the birth and death of a human being. The third point was relevance to other subjects. So we could include everything with it, like all the subjects, history, geography, sociology, and the languages that are English and Hindi, because all the description, all the writing work, all the presentation could be done in both of these languages. Further, I would hand it over to Kavita ma'am to take on for the next points.
Yes, Kavita, what are the skills they can use and what are the presentation mediums they can use? You see, this is not a test or anything. I know you got a very short time. It is just to put you in perspective and lead you to think about these methods. So please, there's nothing that you have to project as a teacher. Yeah, Kavita, you want to say something else?
See, the skills is definitely reading skills will be included. There will be writing skills also. Children are going to express themselves by making notes, and there is investigation also included in this, right? Which was the next question, ma'am?
what is a medium of presentation you would recommend for this?
See, I feel that making the children can make this as a virtual trip also, ma'am.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
trip to Kathmandu, something like that, which can be showcased with all the students, other students also. Even we can make a good PPT on this, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So can we go on to maths? The math group, can you have one person take the lead? Yeah.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, in a math, we have taken a topic. We have selected a topic as a ratio. And for driving question, we have taken a situation, a real life situation actually, where I do have to buy something and we do have to compare with the things. So if I have to purchase a laptop, I do have to compare few things, a brand and even a price. So whenever I'm asking students which are the things I have to compare, they can give me such a things like a configuration, or we do have to compare their prices. And whenever a word comes to compare, that comparison words drives us towards a ratio, and we can show them by comparing different things how ratio can be found. Am I audible?
I would like to continue, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah, please.
Relevant to other subject means particular. If I talk about any kind of like cake, so I can take the nutrient values, okay, in which particular ratio and in which particular proportion we have taken, ma'am.
Okay. What are the skills that you think that the students will develop, and what are the tools they can use?
Ma'am, the investigation means particular by comparing different investigation,
Okay.
and then they come across the what exactly ratio means by real life situation content, and it can be the nutrient value. They can understand कि ये nutrification values हैं क्या, so they can relate it to the science also, and by that's all, ma'am.
And what is a medium of presentation they would have?
Ma'am, medium presentation, they can be what we can have the PPTs, we can have the some teaching aids, like means particular real objects, some real content we can show, ma'am. Means actual product we can show. We can have the means PPTs. We can have the chart and models by different models. Actually, comparison where it can be done.
Okay. Now, the rest of the teachers, please take care that you'll be asked to evaluate this also, add to it also. So please note down whatever you want to add, because this is collaboration. This what we are discussing now, each one is presenting, but that's not the end of it. There are other teachers who are listening to it. Probably they can add to it. Like if he said he could use a presentation medium like this, somebody could have another view that another presentation medium would be better. Or probably other subjects, could be encompassed in this kind of question. So please be alert, and we would be asking you for feedback for these presenters. Okay, science. Who's doing it for science?
Ma'am, is it science or EVS?
Science first. If you're ready with EVS, you can start with EVS.
Yes, ma'am, we are ready with EVS.
Okay.
Very good evening, ma'am. Myself, Amina Rajkotwala. The topic for our presentation was plants. We have selected plants, and like the driving questions would be an open-ended question, a very triggering question for the child. Like, what will happen if there are no plants on Earth?
Okay.
So this will be an open-ended where we can get multiple reflections of the children. The next point was relevance to life. So we can ask the child by like how, what all useful things, what all do we get from plant kingdom. So here it will be a variety. We will have a bouquet of variety coming up with all answers from the child, like how they are useful to human life. The next thing was connecting it with the other subjects. So for Hindi, we have thought of poster making. Like we can ask the child to make a poster on World Environment Day, or how we can save the earth, along with the slogans. Jal hi kal hai, jal hai to jeevan hai.
So this can inculcate their language skills also. Connecting it with English, there can be dialogue writing with the child. The child can get connected with the tree itself. And we have also thought of letter writing, like the child is writing letter to its favorite tree, where the child is depicting all the feelings that comes to all the feelings about the tree. So we can have a variety, we can give an option there. Either it can be a dialogue writing or a letter writing. We should not stick to a particular thing. There should be a variety in the questions also. When we are connecting it with maths, we can give a checklist of few typical plants, and we can ask them to search. We can have them research, and we can ask them to calculate the lifespan or the growth span of that particular plant. Now, if we are connecting it with art and craft, so we can ask them to make a card by using twillings, or we can strings, petals, leaves. We can have a variety of card where they can give for the COVID warriors, or they can give to their favorite teacher. Hence, here also the feeling of their apnapan jise kehte hain na, so that feeling can come for their inner feeling can come out. And the uses of skills. So here the child will observe the things very minutely. So here the observation is enhanced, whereas the personal experience of a child will be more of reflected, and the child is going to get a lot of awareness. When we have such discussions in the class, we have a variety of answers. When the child listens to the other child, what the other child is saying, so obviously it is going to create awareness in the child, alertness about the nature, that it is our sovereign responsibility to work for the nature. Unless we conserve the nature, we cannot survive more. So here it is more of alertness and obviously conservation. We need to conserve it for the next generation. Now, the mediums that we are planning to implement, these are multimedia, like we can use YouTube videos for it. We can have quizzes. Ma'am, there's a very good app, live app, which is there, which we are actually using. We get multiple worksheets where we can have a variety of questions for the children. We also have live worksheets where picture narration and picture talk can be done with the child, where we also get a multiple choice answers. We also can plan out a test after having, like as a part of recapitulation, we can have a Google form test for the child, where the child can attempt a variety of questions. So in a very short of time, we have planned only this much.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Myself, Rachna Jaggi from Army Public School, ma'am. I would like to add up some of a few more questions to Amina ma'am's, like what she said. So, ma'am, the topic is plants. So we can also ask questions like, what happens if all plants die? Then we can ask them, can they survive without plants? And third, like, what will happen if there are no plants and trees? And at the same time, ma'am, we can also tell them the importance of the plants. Like now in this pandemic, we know about oxygen, how it is very important. So at the same time, we can also tell them about the importance of plants, ma'am. So that's it, ma'am.
Very nice.
Thank you, ma'am.
EVS group has really worked, very well on it. But only one thing I object to, that tell them. Get that, tell them vocabulary out of a teacher's vocabulary totally. Just tell them is not required at all. We will encourage them to find out. So just, these are small things which are mindsets. So just that, otherwise, fantastic job.
Thank you,
ma'am. Thanks, ma'am, for your input. We will definitely work upon it.
Yeah, thank you. Now science. No, science is one area we think that project-based learning works best, because science is about exploring and all. But where we have to change our mindset, it works well with all subjects. So science.
Okay, good afternoon, ma'am. I am Nalini from Pudha School.
Yeah.
And my group is science. And in my group, we have decided the topic that is food and health. Now in this pandemic situation, food, it is having the vital role. It is having the main role. Means if your immunity is good, you'll survive better. So we have decided this topic, and the question really relevant to the life is that how the COVID-19 affects our habit of food. Means usually we are not thinking of food like this. It helps us to increase our immunity. Usually we are eating that we like. Okay. For example, we eat pizza, we eat burgers, all the things which are not good for our health. So in this pandemic situation, I think everyone is quite aware of these nutrients. So this will students will also know about the nutrients more and how they affect our life or our health. Then many subject we can incorporate in this. For example, English, the vocabulary, the new scientific terms they must know from this. For example, viruses, RNA, DNA, and which method vaccine, for example, and how the scientists are making the vaccines, which methods they are using to make the vaccines, all the things. Then maths, we can collect the data. Actually, it is available and it is updated daily on daily basis. So data collection is there. Then SST means this is worldwide pandemic actually. So climate and temperature, all the things, geographical things also affects in that pandemic. And one more thing, that population also plays an important role. So this is the thing. These are the subjects, and one more subject is very important, that is psychology. Okay, your mind, how your mind is strong, how you are keeping your mind strong in this pandemic. Okay, so this one means there is a stress, loss of stress is there.
Basically, your driving question is about the pandemic and the thing, and not really about nutrition, food.
I mean, both the things are there.
Okay.
Means
what is the defined driving question?
Food, means how the food affects in this pandemic, means COVID-19 situation.
What is the role of food in a situation? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
So
Social
these
science.
are the social science, and psychology also include. And the skills that first is ability to find the information, and collaboration skills also, they have to collaborate. Then organization also. And last thing is medium of presentation. They can present it with the PPTs also, posters, and we can discuss this. Means discussion forum is also one of the good medium. So this is from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very well done. So you see, this whole exercise, it cannot be, obviously, you know, you were given 10 minutes and you actually got 5 minutes only. So this is not to judge you as a teacher or anything, but it's set your mind at least working. Your, you know, mind start taking on these kind of things, and some focus has come in. So that was a, you know, basic relevance of this thing. Anybody who wrote the 3 topics that I said, write 3 topics which cannot be taught through project-based learning. Anybody would want to comment on that? Any topics that you think cannot be taught through project-based learning? And once somebody, you know, names these 3 topics, if there's anybody who can refute it and say, no, it can be taught, I would welcome that also. Anybody made a list of 1, 2, 3 topics? Any?
Ma'am, Ameena ma'am has put up a message. She says we are doing all these things practically.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. I'm sure, you know, teachers are now very, very aware, and teachers are doing a lot practically. But, you know, what I found was probably it was lack of time or whatever. But in your whole assessment of doing this activity, in this short period of time, you know, there is all the methods that you suggested, the presentation mediums and, you know, the topics, they were all the kinds we've been doing. Yes. I agree. But there is no out-of-box thinking that has come about in this forum. So I would suggest that all teachers, when you really get into it and when you're convinced about this whole method of teaching, you will come up with fantastic ideas. Lot of out-of-box thinking projects that you can take up. Also, a lot of, when you see the books that you all teach from, when you see them in totality, not just your own books in chapter number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you will see that there are many things that can be interpolated. I mean, I remember when I started ICON, I was, I used to be a great, I think fan of this kind of method. So I tried a lot with many books together and giving them concepts in one particular, area where all the subjects could be integrated. But unfortunately, till now, we don't have an assessment system where we can be on our own. But gradually, it's going to come about in CBSE also. So you'll be required to assess children on a holistic manner. So if you start right away, by the time it actually comes into force, you will be empowered teachers to straight away take it up. There'll be no training required. So just open your mind to these kind of ideas where holistic learning takes place. You integrate subjects so that you start studying books. If you're a maths teacher, start looking into science books, start looking into social studies books, and get these concepts where you can teach 4 subjects together in one concept. And a lot of collaboration amongst teachers. So that is very important when all of you sit together and decide, okay, we'll teach this concept. So this lesson of yours will be taught, lesson number 2 of science, lesson number 8 of social studies. It can be all integrated into this concept. So why don't we take, sessions with students, not lectures, not classes, but sessions with students where we get the students together. All of us get together and give them a, sort of brainstorming session about a concept and let them come up with this thing. Okay, and end of it, when they come up with the results, say, okay, now chapter number 2 of science is done, chapter number 8 of social studies is done, and chapter number 3 of English is done. So, the result may you find out how subjects are integrated. So this is just a beginning, it's not the end. Just to put that seed in your hearts that it can be done, and fantastic method. So I hope you've enjoyed this whole session, and sometime later, maybe later in the year, we can come back and now evaluate that in these few 6-8 months, did we actually gain something from it, and did we actually become better at teaching this concept. So thank you very much for attending this and for being a part of this. I'll be sending the PPT and the recording on the group. So in case you want to go back to it, anytime anybody has any questions, you're always welcome to come back to me. I'm very passionately concerned and involved in this kind of thinking. So I'd love to answer any question, even on a personal level. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Wonderful session, ma'am.
Thank you so much,
Before you
ma'am.
leave, there is a link which has been there's a link which has been posted in the chat box. Radhika, can you post it again? It's a basic attendance and a feedback form. So if you can just fill that before leaving.
Yes, sure,
Thank
sure.
you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.